Make a Path presents Let's Talk. Alright, Deadheads, I'm making a change to the Q&As now. Basically, the difference with the Q&As now, you're going to ask your question that you want answered in the very last Q&A video. So, for example, this right now, as you're watching this is the newest Q&A. Simply put your question in the comments. I'm going to answer as many of those questions in the comments section, either right there when I read them, if they're a question that's been asked 100 times, or I'm going to do it in the video. If I don't manage to answer you in the comments or in the video, just simply re-ask the question. Maybe you want to reword it, maybe you don't want to ask it, maybe somebody else asked it and it was already covered. I mean, there's many different possibilities. So basically, long story short, put your question in the most recent Q&A. And my Q&As are simple. Q&A 1 to whatever we stop at. The entire fandom. Comic, book, game, you name it. And like always, if you have a question for the Q&A videos, you need to put Q and A right before your question. Example here. I think that's it. And the only other thing I want to cover right now is the P.O. box is open. I opened that a little while ago. I totally forgot. Some people said they wanted to send some artwork. I think that is absolutely awesome. I'm actually thrilled to see some artwork. A couple of you who found me on Facebook and asked for the P.O. address, I gave it to you. If you want the P.O. address, just simply look at the About section. It will be there. I might put it in the video, but if you're watching this and it's an older video, do not send anything to this address unless you go to the About tab in the channel and look at the actual address to make sure it wasn't changed. If this is an old video and you send it to the old address, I'm not going to receive it, chances are, you know. Again, I will put it here. I can't stress that enough. Just double check before you ship it out. And if you want to just shoot me a message, you don't have to. Shoot me a message to let me know. And then that way I'll make an extra trip to the post office. Just so the box doesn't get flooded, you know. Alright, let's jump into a couple questions now. The Walking Dead Q&A 45. Zoodoos. The Wolves look at pictures of Alexandria. Yada yada yada. Could this setup be for the Wolves capturing Caul to use as leverage because him and Enid went outside the gates? You know what? I'm not going to say yes and I'm not going to say no, but I do believe that there is something there. I do believe that they were having Enid go outside the walls to set something up for Season 6. I believe that 100%. Now, what are they setting up? I don't know. The Walking Dead dude. What character would you like to see McFarlane make a resin statue of? You guys know I have the Rick Grimes resin statue. One day I would love to get a hold of the Michonne, but if I personally could whisper in his ear and he would make whatever statue I wanted, the resin statue, I would want Negan. I would want Negan bashing in Glenn's skull. Imagine that image of Negan either standing over a Glenn on the ground or a Negan when he actually hits Glenn in the head. And I don't know if you can, yeah, you can't see it. I'll put images on the screen, but the way Rick is blowing the zombie's brains out and it has the trail of blood, imagine Negan just slamming down on Glenn's head and you have like this fountain of blood coming off the side of the... That sounds real bad, but I would want something like that. I would want Negan in the resin statue, immortalized in his first appearance, beating Glenn to death with Lucille. I think that would be just absolutely epic. You know, that's pretty bloody, but you know, whatever, you know, it's entertainment. Yeah, I would want Negan. And if I could get Skybound to just make whatever comic figure, I have a whole list. But I think it would be so awesome. Yeah, I think it would be so awesome if Skybound could make a Negan figure like the New Beginning. But here, you see how they have the sticker here? Make this plastic bubble for the inbox collectors as prison bars. So it would be like issue 141, where Negan's standing in the prison bars, except for instead of his haircut, he would have two heads. He would have the haircut head, and then he would have the long hair with the beard head. And he comes in package with the long hair and the beard, and the package has prison bars on it. I think that would be so awesome for the figure collectors to get. Because the packaging, you can keep it that way, and it would have the prison bars right on the packaging. It would look like Negan is in the jail cell. And then for the ones that open them up and display them, you can have the interchangeable heads, so you can recreate the cover. you know, from issue 141. I think that would be awesome. I also think I should do a whole video on what I think Skybound should do as far as the comic figures, even AMC for the TV show figures, because I think a whole New Beginning series would be the shit. They already have Series 4 with Jesus, and that's a New Beginning look. But I think it would be awesome to get Andrea New Beginning, Rick New Beginning, Caul New Beginning, slap Lydia in there, Maggie New Beginning. I'm probably missing some people, but you get what I'm saying. That wasn't the question. I just went on a rant. But yeah, that's what I would love to be in some kind of division like that. I would simply just figure out what figures to make. Also, from the Walking Dead dude, he asked a bunch. I'll throw 2 questions in here. Will Rick ever be a badass again in the comics? I think he will. I think they'll show him the badass. Brant Cloyd, do you think Carol could become Rick's love interest? No, I do not. Absolutely not. Chill the Impaler, do you like Glenn from the comics or the TV show better, and why? I like Glenn from the TV show a lot better. I love Glenn from the comics, but in the TV show, he just seems a lot more fleshed out, you know? JD Studios. Herschel was proud of Rick's speech in season 4, Too Far Gone. Do you think Herschel would still be proud of Rick with the way he is now? You know what? Here's the thing. Herschel would have went through all that with Rick. Herschel's seen it. Herschel would have went through it, not just himself. He would have went through it with his daughters. So I do think that Herschel would have tried to pull the reins in a little bit on Rick and help him to be a little more gentle, you know, have a little different of a tactic, you know, change his tactic in ways. But I think Herschel would have understood completely, and I think there would be a lot more understanding with Herschel. But I don't think Herschel would have just turned his back on him at all. The Walking Dead is love, The Walking Dead is life. Why do you think they chose not to kill Judith when Lori gave birth? You know what? Simply because when you have a child, right? This is a possible storyline. It's multiple possible storylines. That's the child being alive. You just kill the child immediately. Not only do you eliminate those possible storylines, but also, why did she get pregnant to begin with? You know what I mean? You see, in TV, and this is what some fans just don't get when you try to have discussions, and some fans, not a lot of fans are cool, but some just, they get stubborn. People totally forget in the comic book, it's one issue. So when Judith is born, you're with Judith for months. You know what I'm saying? For months before she dies. In a TV show, it might have, if they translated it exactly, it might have been just a week or 2. It might have been 3 or 4 weeks. And it would have just been like, why was she pregnant then? Why even do that storyline? You see what I mean? So I think that they did the right thing leaving Judith alive. As far as right now, I don't know. It all depends on what they have up their sleeve. Sliced Up Drunk. Do you think Glenn will live to fight an all-out war? You know what? I hope he does. I really hope he does. No, I do not think he'll live to see all-out war, but I hope he does. Nisa Veslovic. Oh, I messed that up. I know I did. Do you think Maggie will go on to fulfill her comic book role as leader of the Hilltop? And will she have a baby? You know what? Yeah, I do. I do. Jake Vicini. Do you think they will kill Caul off sooner than expected since he is growing faster than the show progresses? No. I think the damage is already done with Caul. Even if you brought in Caul's major storyline right now, the damage is already done. He already looks older than he does in the comic right now. Actually, they do draw him looking a little older than he should be, but you know, there's some play there because of the way the style it's drawn. So, but damage is done with Caul. It really doesn't matter right now. The only thing that matters if the actor can handle the role or not. If he can, move forward. If he can't, kill him off and get it over with. I know that sounds cold, but that's just the way it is, man. Batman's hooker. Okay. Do you think the silent girl Enid from Alexandria might be set up as a replacement for Sophia on the TV show? You know what? That's absolutely possible. I think it's way too early to tell right now, but that is absolutely possible. Fade Snaggarts. How many seasons will there be? You know what? Right now there could definitely be 15. Roundabout. Absolutely. Big Chuck. Ronnie, question. Do you think it's possible that no one gets Glenn's death and they do something different, or maybe they give Glenn's death to a lesser known or loved character? I think that's a total waste to give it to a lesser known or lesser loved character. You want to take a character that's loved and you want to take a character that is, I don't want to say innocent. I think they should use that death to kill someone who's loved and who's harmless. But I don't mean harmless as in somebody who's a grown child. Like Morgan, for example, and I don't want to keep putting him, in that position and forcing it, but take Morgan, who, he is a badass. Again, an overused word, but he will fight and he will kick ass. However, right now he thinks life is precious and it should be saved. I think it should be a person like that, who is harmless, meaning they can hold their own, but they choose not to kill. They choose to believe in humanity instead of just saying everyone's bad and bad people need to just die immediately. I think they need to use somebody like that. So, but no, I don't believe Glenn's ever going to get the Negan death like the comic books, mainly because Kirkman went on TV as a joke at that At Midnight show, and he said that Glenn was going to die on the TV show the same exact way as in the comic book. And if that was the case, he never would have said that. Alright, Tina Neese. How would you feel if every current character in the show today would die off before the end of the show? Do you like the idea and think it's realistic, or do you want at least one character to survive till the end? If so, who? Keep up the great work. You know what? I'll be totally honest right now. I hate that idea. I hate it so much because then it will seem like the actors didn't want to keep going. Because as long as the show is going, at least some of them should continue to go. And I know, here's the problem. I think Rick Grimes should continue to go on. In the show, he should go on all the way to the end. And the reason is, he's the star. Rick Grimes is the Walking Dead in the TV show. We didn't wake up with any other character in the coma. We didn't get introduced to any other character in this world. We got introduced with Rick Grimes. We started with Rick Grimes. He is the main character. He is the Walking Dead. And this is where the Walking Dead's popularity is actually pushing Rick Grimes' character to the side. And it's ridiculous to see. But I understand it, too, at the same time. See, if The Walking Dead was not as popular as it is today, Rick Grimes would own that shit. But because The Walking Dead is holding its own ground, and it's marketable and it's sellable without Rick Grimes, hence the spin-off, hence the video games, hence the novels, because it can exist on its own, it no longer needs Rick Grimes. 9 years ago, the comic book needed Rick Grimes. Robert Kirkman, I believe he had the idea of killing Rick in the first 10 issues or whatever, and I believe we would not have a Walking Dead TV show right now if that was the case. I do believe he had he made the right choices, and that brought us where we are today. But I think the comic book would be vastly different, and it's the audience's attachment to something, and that's something that's very subtle that a lot of creators completely forget about, is where the audience gets attached to something at, that point. So I don't believe all the characters should die, especially in the TV show. I think we should follow Rick right to the end. Ben Blankard. Do you think Kirkman made the Lilly novels because the governor's death was a disappointment? No, I don't believe it was a disappointment, but we'll call it that. I don't mean his death was a disappointment, but I do mean that him being killed by somebody we don't even know was absolutely disappointing. He even brought that up, and he said he'd never make that same mistake again. And it's funny how I can see that happening. You know what I'm saying? But what's really demented is how Lilly has gone off to be this incredible hero now. Everyone, I had an argument with someone too about Lilly being a hero. I personally don't believe it's a hero. I think it's a tragedy that we actually look at this character as a hero. But I understand why people do. I get it. But it's twisted how some people out there, some fans, are rooting for the woman who, in cold blood, shot and murdered Rick's wife and his infant child. Laurie's murderer, Judith's murderer in the comic book, is now a hero in her own novels. I was always hoping that even though she did kill the governor and she was against it, whatever, she would have some sort of flaw that would turn her back around into a villain later on that Rick would face. And I know it's unrealistic, but those are one of those comic book storylines that I would hope to see one day. I think that would be so awesome. Either bring Lilly back as an enemy Rick faces, or bring Lilly back as somebody who is somebody who still carries the burden of killing that woman a child, and it is brought out in light to Rick one day. I don't want to go into detail because I did talk about this a couple times in another Q&A. That's why I'm kind of like, don't go off the deep end talking about it, because I already did. Alright, listen, we got a lot more Q&As coming for the summertime. This is just the start of it. So, keep in mind, if you have a Q&A, even if you asked one and we didn't get to it yet, start right now. Leave it in the comments section down below, and we will get cracking on those questions. Alright guys, there's a lot more coming, so stay tuned. Subscribe.